That, my friends, fortunately and finally, what is becoming a common Bengals W was going to have to change the name of this show before too long. But right now, as things sit, the Cincinnati Bengals are one game out of being tied for the last wild card spot. And as I start this, it looks like the Minnesota Vikings might be able to put away the Indianapolis Colts, although with, old ass Joe Flacco, who knows these days. I did not do a show last week after the Eagles game. I was just dejected and bummed out and just like, I'll get around to it. And then I didn't do it. And I can't remember the last show I didn't, or the last game I didn't do a show for, as the Vikings did just put away the Colts. So the Bengals are tied for, like, they're one out of that spot in the wild card somehow. But I just felt dejected. But I do want to talk a little bit about that game before we talk about the Bengals Raiders game. Um, Listen, the Bengals have trouble with mobile quarterbacks. Um, if you have offensive weapons, and let me tell you, the Eagles do. Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, they get abused. The secondary, unless your name is Mike Hilton, is very bad. And I mean very, very bad. And the Bengals got exposed there. Joe Burrow had a pick last week as well. Chase Brown did not play well last week at all. Jermaine Burton had that one big reception that made things look very, very promising. Mike Gesicki played his ass off. Jamar Chase had a touchdown. Good stuff there. I've blacked out a large amount of last week. Bengals had no sacks. There was no defensive pressure whatsoever. They didn't hold onto the ball well. Wasn't good. Wasn't good. Evan McPherson missed another field goal. We got to have a real conversation about Evan McPherson down the line. But as things stand right now, I've let that one go. I can take the Bengals losing to the Eagles. They're a good team. I can take them losing to the Commanders a lot more than I could earlier this year, because the Commanders are an excellent team. The Chiefs game is a tough one to sort of chew on, because the Bengals should have beaten the best team in the NFL. They should have. They are a dumb pass interference call away and a Tanner Hudson fumble in game one away from being in playoff contention. And instead of being 4-5, being, what would they be? 6-3 is what they would be. And that's hard to sort of digest, because I don't think the Bengals deserve to be 6-3. Even though I look at them and I'm like, by all means, like, the only game that they were really, really out of was the Eagles game. That was it. Every other game, like, the Bengals could be 8-1 right now. They don't deserve to be 8-1. I don't know if they deserve to be 4-5. But as things stand right now, that's where the Bengals are as they head into Thursday night. And you know what you're going to see. You know what you're going to see against the Ravens. As Tone Stamp says, they're a botch snap away from a victory over the Ravens. Absolutely. You know what you're going to see this week because of the Thursday night game. You're going to see the clip from last year of Joe Burrow throwing and hurting his wrist and all that stuff. You're going to see all that, and it's going to be played over and over and over again. And I ain't excited about that. I am fully expecting the Cincinnati Bengals to get their asses kicked on Thursday, because the Ravens stepped in and just handled business, dropped another 41 on the Broncos, who have been a more consistent team than the Cincinnati Bengals. They've just been a better team all year. I mean, they held Panthers, Saints. You're going to hold those teams to those amount of points. But even the Chargers in defeat to 23, the Raiders to 18. So they did better than the Bengals did there. The Jets. Now, the Broncos have faced really bad teams, but their defense has held up very well throughout this season. Like, like they've got, gosh, I want to say like four or five games where they haven't allowed 2 touchdowns, and the Ravens rolled them. The Bengals are going to get abused. That secondary is going to get abused. Haywood Wong says Henry's going to make the Bengals D make business decisions. And that's why I'm going to say this, Haywood. The Bengals need to trade for help. Now, I'll say this. I'm pretty comfortable with BJ Hill, Sheldon Rankins, Chris Jenkins, McKinley Jackson. I'm feeling all right about that. I believe in those guys. However, Dax Hill is now out for the year. We had him during that game. Cam Taylor-Britt is now playing exponentially worse than he was then. And the Bengals have gotten diced over the middle at will. I felt like all but one completion today was right over the middle. And you could see it happening. Like, they go right over the middle with passes all day. Now, again, the Bengals doing fairly well in run defense, does increase some confidence there, because again, those first like 4 or 5 weeks, they were not operating at full strength. I actually love the way they drafted back-to-back McKinley Jackson and Chris Jenkins. And now that will give them a lot of flexibility with the defensive tackle position next year, where they very clearly have to upgrade corner and safety. And they've got to keep Mike Hilton for a number of reasons. But Mike Hilton is absolutely the leader on that defense. And I mean, like, from a maturity standpoint. Let's talk about other things that happened good on defense. Trey Hendrickson exists. Now, first off, you pay Trey after this season. I know he's got a year left. You pay him after this season. I am completely of the belief that he was acting ridiculous before this year, threatening to retire, all that stuff. Just come on. You had 2 years left on your deal. But the Bengals got to pay Trey. 4 sacks today. A forced fumble as well. Leading the league in sacks. Now, he's not the type of guy that you're going to see deflect a lot of passes. You're not going to see him with picks or anything like that as a defensive end, like deflecting the ball and running off with a pick or something like that. But you're seeing him force fumbles now. You're seeing him get to the quarterback. If the Bengals are able to get to the quarterback, they had 5 sacks this week. If they had 2 or 3 last week, I think the course of that game goes much different. I don't know if the Bengals win it, but things look a lot different. Logan Wilson was all over that ball, by the way. Recovered 2 fumbles today. So that's something else to look at. Logan Wilson, who led the team in tackles, which doesn't mean a whole lot, really. It just means that they got there. But what does mean something is when you fall on 2 fumble recoveries and you end up with the ball, because that is important. I really like the defensive tackle play. I like that Njong Meta is getting some time to play. That's cool. We saw some flashes from Myles Murphy, some pressure there. But Cam Taylor-Britt has just vanished. Von Bell is old and slow. I mean, I think he had a 1 tackle for loss that was very nice, but ooh boy. Like, you gotta improve there. And I think the Bengals need to improve there. Let's take a look at the Bengals draft picks, because they had a whole mess of them this year. And a couple years ago, they took Brad Robbins. You mean to tell me you wouldn't have traded that 6th round that ended up being Brad Robbins for a difference maker, a half a year of a difference maker, or a year and a half of a difference maker? How about DJ Ivey? All due respect to him. Jeff Gunter. Yeah, I would have gladly given up whatever Jeff Gunter was. Wyatt Hubert, who never played a game for the Bengals. Chris Evans, unfortunately, on the injury list. Trey Hill would have gladly done that. People are getting decent players for 6th and 7th round picks. The Bengals had four 6th and 7th round picks in 2019. 3 of them never hit the field. The Bengals, God, I mean, you just look at their hit rate on 6th and 7th rounders, then you see who's getting traded for 6th and 7th rounders. Now, listen, if you can get a guy like Matt Lee, obviously, you feel pretty good about Matt Lee. Dejon Anthony so far is done okay. They've made more use of their young players. Unfortunately, it looks like we're going to see more Tanner McLachlan as Eric all tore his ACL. Get well soon to him. And Tone Stamp says, no one's asking. They spend day 1 and 2 picks. There you go. I'm with you. Now, this year, I felt like it was very important for the Bengals to utilize and capitalize on their draft capital this year. I felt like that was very important, and they had a bunch of picks. Amarius Mims looking like the truth. Chris Jenkins looking like the truth. Jermaine Burton, well, we're about to talk about him. McKinley Jackson looking great. Eric All looking great. Unfortunately, got an injury. Then we get into, Josh Newton, Tanner McLachlan, Cedric Johnson, Dejon Anthony, Matt Lee, and all those are going to be TBDs. Like, okay, obviously 8-9 games in, we're not going to see how all those guys do. But then, listen, last year they hit with Yoshi Voss, and you can think what you want about him on 50-50 balls. Man gets into the end zone. Chase Brown, a hit at number 5. Round 4, you would have liked to see them get somebody better than Charlie Jones, right? You would have liked that. Jordan Battle, DJ Turner, Miles Murphy. Doesn't look like the early rounds of that were too well. The year prior, Dax Hill, Cam Taylor-Britt. You get the picture. Cordell Volson's been a very solid 4. But when we're talking 6, 7, I would even go as high as 5 on some of this. Gotta do better. Gotta go after somebody. But here's the reality of the situation, guys. The Bengals hear our cries. They hear it. And they're not going to do anything. You know how I know? They heard our cries to sign Jamar Chase before he had a big-ass year and got more expensive. They didn't do it. They heard our cries to keep Jesse Bates. Lou Anarumo is a Jesse Bates merchant. They didn't do it. Then they heard our cries earlier this year. Why is Stephon Gilmore not playing for the Cincinnati Bengals right now? Do you know how different the Cincinnati Bengals would look right now had they just signed Gilmore? It'd be a completely different team. Completely different team. But they didn't do it. Yeah, who needs a 5-time Pro Bowl veteran that can still go? Missed one game over the last 2 years. Who needs that, right? Come on, man. Come on, man. Stephon Gilmore was not signed until August 18th. Bengals should have had him. Bengals should have had him. Oh, man. So, Bengals could not stop Brock Bowers. They can't stop anybody over the middle. It was either to a tight end or right over the middle, and it was all day. When the Bengals get one stop, the Bengals got to capitalize. The Bengals got to score 41 points in a game because they might not get 2 stops in a game. They were very fortunate to force 5 punts today. Very fortunate. And still somehow, despite scoring 41 points, punted the ball 3 times. It did not seem like the Bengals were in position to where they could score 41 points and punt the ball 3 times, because it felt like they only got the ball like 2 or 3 times the entire first half. I will be real about Trenton Irwin, and then I will compliment him. Stop throwing the ball to Trenton Irwin. He's caught 30% of his passes. I was a big Trenton Irwin advocate a couple years ago. He stepped in off the practice squad, did excellent, and now he is not a good wide receiver. He's not a passable wide receiver. However, he did really good as a return man today. I liked him a lot. I liked him a little bit more than I liked Charlie Jones. And Drew says Trenton isn't as good as he was 2 years ago. Yeah, he ain't fooling anybody now. How do I feel about the news the Bengals get to beat the Cowboys in both reality and the alternate reality? Week 14. I'm excited to see that. I am. Bright side, you ain't the Cowgirls right now. Man, Dak Prescott on the sideline saying, we suck. Damn. Front office needs to learn to get picks, to let picks go to get the pieces they need. Yeah. Yep. Tone says, to be fair to Irwin, the game plan was built to use Burton. So let's talk about it. The elephant in the room. So I loved the Bengals picking Jermaine Burton round 3. Now, let me tell you, there were a few very high-risk picks in this draft for the Bengals. Eric All was one of them. Well, he had an injury history. Unfortunately, he got injured. Jermaine Burton was one for character issues. Okay. Then you get a very safe pick like Matt Lee, right? Jermaine Burton had a great catch last week. A lot of us have been begging for him to get into the game a lot more because I love T. Higgins. Man can't stay on the field. Man can't stay on the field. And after missing 5 games last year, 3 in 2021, he has now missed his 4th game. And Jermaine Burton is a playmaker. Now, I've seen him run the wrong route a couple times. We don't know why it is. Don't know why it is that he wasn't getting that playing time throughout the early part of the year, but we know why now. The game plan was built around Burton a lot this week, which was confirmed by a number of people, and he just didn't show up to walkthroughs. Then today showed up in pajamas. I don't wear pajamas when I do my live streams and you can't see me from the waist down. Now, you had Sam Hubbard being very kind to him, Zach Taylor being very kind to him. You had Joe Burrow being very kind to him in public on the mic. But then you see something where Jermaine Burton usually sits near Joe Burrow, and there's this interesting interaction that we see along the sideline. And then Jermaine Burton gets up, pats him on the back, and walks off. But I'll tell you who I respect an awful lot in this situation. Mike Hilton. Mike Hilton, who led the players meeting, the Come to Jesus players meeting on the defensive end, who needs to be re-signed immediately, said, nobody is here to baby you anymore. You're in the big leagues now. This is stuff I got to tell my writers at Fightful this sometimes. We've had a guy that's a little bit colorful, and I'm like, I'm not here to fucking baby you. I hired you because you do good work. That's it. The Bengals hired this guy because they wanted him to do good work, and they believed he could do good work, not to babysit him, not to make him an adult. He's 23, 24 years old right now. What I don't want to see, and listen, the Bengals have had a long history of being willing to draft players that have character issues. Vontez Burfict. Well, he became a great player who I will readily admit was one of the dirtiest players. He was a player I was glad to have on my team and that I did not like as a person or a human being. And guess what happened as a result of that? For a variety of reasons, he was an incredible linebacker. Go look at how many games he played the last 5-6 years of his career for various reasons, whether it be injuries, suspension, anything. Adam Pac-Man Jones, he had character issues, but guess what? He was a leader. Drew Douglas said that even in his press conference, Joe said, this isn't college. You show up and you have to be early. Adam Pac-Man Jones, love him personally too. Became a great player. Gamble paid off for the Bengals until, the playoff game. Chris Henry, well, phenomenally talented player. Did some great things for the Cincinnati Bengals. Unfortunately, we know how that story ended. Tragically. I'm not going to say that's the case with Jermaine Burton, but the Bengals have been willing to give players that have perceived character issues. Joe Mixon, he fell. The Bengals took him. Had a great career with the Bengals. Having a better career with the Texans. The Bengals have been willing to do this and have a very high hit rate with people with perceived character issues. This is not territory that is uncharted for the Cincinnati Bengals. But Jermaine Burton has an opportunity here. And he had a real opportunity this week. He even said, I think I should be playing more. He took himself out of the game. Mike Gesicki, 5 receptions, 6 targets, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Chase Brown caught 5 passes and got a touchdown. Drew Sample caught 4 passes and a touchdown. Yoshi Voss got in the end zone again. Kendrick Pryor was getting the ball thrown at him. Tanner Hudson went full on American Horror Story, surprise bitch. I bet you thought you'd seen the last of me, and showed up. Almost scored a touchdown as well. You mean to tell me 4 targets to Drew Sample, 3 to Tanner Hudson, 1 to Kendrick Pryor, 5 targets to Chase Brown, who did great, by the way, 6 to Gesicki, who played great, and I'm so glad about that signing. Listen, buddy, Jermaine Burton was going to get a workload today. But who did? Mike freaking Gesicki. One of the best Bengals signings in recent memory. They got him for $2.5 million? And that's what the Bengals do. We know that's what the Bengals do. They say, hey, come play here for $1 million or $2 million a year, and then go make 7 or 8 somewhere else. CJ Uzomah finished out his rookie deal here. Hayden Hurst finished out his rookie deal here. I was shocked Tanner Hudson didn't get at least an offer somewhere else. But Mike Gesicki's the latest. But hopefully we can talk him into staying. So Mike Gesicki is one of those guys who, a very deceptive big dude, because he's a little bit leaner in that way. But he works as a slot. He works as a tight end. And we are looking at a situation right now where Mike Gesicki has already had his best NFL season since 2021 by the looks of it. And Mike Gesicki, his numbers would have been even crazier had he not been forced out of bounds on that deep ball. Mike can slide in because Yoshi Voss isn't catching 50-50 balls. Mike can. Mike can go up top. Listen, there are a lot of physical attributes that Gesicki doesn't have that T. Higgins has. But when you need that big dude to go up and high top the ball, bring it down, Mike Gesicki's doing that. I'll tell you a play I loved. So it was after the horrible pick 6 that I saw a lot of people blaming Yoshi Voss for. So let me break this down, because I hate when the Bengals throw screen pass, screen pass, screen pass. Bengals go to it all day, every day. even when they're in the lower half of it, they do the lower half of the frequency rate of that. They still do it too much, right? I didn't blame Yoshivas there. I credited the defensive back who saw Chase in motion, watched this happen 100 times over the last 3 years, and said, why am I going to run right into the guy I'm supposed to guard? I know where the ball's going. It's going right to Jamar Chase. Wrong. And in stride, he got the pick six. So what I loved was it was almost like WWE a few years ago when it was so bad and they would tease you and they would be like, hey, we're going to do that really stupid thing that everybody hates. We're going to do it. The Bengals did that to the Raiders right after that play. So they showed screen and the Raiders were like, hell yeah, dummies. You're going to do it again? All right. And then Mike Gesicki jumps the screen. So where the DB didn't go after Yoshivas on that block and he just jumped that screen for the pick six, Gesicki just didn't block on the screen and ran right over the middle and took it to the house. Bengals got to switch it up like that. That was promising to me. That was something that made me excited. Where do the Bengals go with Burton moving forward? I'd be shocked if he plays Thursday. But, listen, if T didn't play today, T ain't playing Thursday. So it's oh, man. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. Evan McPherson was decent today. Rico, punt god. This guy rules. Shout out Zach Taylor. Listen, Zach Taylor got on my good side a little bit today. Throwing when they had the game in the bag. I like that too. Although I think Browning should have been in much earlier. He challenged the spot of the punt when the Bengals were up comfortably. He's like, no, and he was right to call it. The refs screwed that up. They screwed that up. Get camera angles. Be ready at the pylon with a camera if a punt's going on. How are we doing this? There are 400 cameras every NFL game. You can't have somebody by the sideline with a camera like, okay, we'll be here in case. What are we doing? Rico did great. Yoshi with the stretch TD. Hell yeah. That's what I like about the man. Dude gets into the end zone. To me, he has filled the role. At best, I think he's a wide receiver 3. But what I think he's done perfectly is fill that role of Trenton Irwin's from last year and the year prior that was very valuable, which is if Jamar Chase or T. Higgins are out, you can throw the ball to him, feel pretty comfortable, and know that he can get into the end zone. And that is something that Trenton Irwin did very good a couple of years ago. He had those 4 TDs. What chances do you give the team of winning Thursday after today's win? About 15%. I think the Ravens offense is going to kick the living shit out of the Bengals. Now, I do believe in the Bengals run defense a little bit better. And they did pretty good against Derrick Henry until that last run. But they are down a Dax Hill and Cam Taylor-Britt is playing a lot worse. Chase Brown, phenomenal game from Chase Brown. Chase Brown is, listen, he ain't much of a run blocker, but he is an offensive weapon that I am happy the Bengals are going to have for the next 2.5 seasons at the very least. And he is a guy that the Bengals have needed badly. He's averaging 4.6 a carry right now. He's also getting into those short yardage passes as well, where Burrow feels very comfortable just throwing it over the line and getting it to him, which I like. He's doing the thing, man. And beyond that, he's getting to the first down marker, and that's something we had trouble with Mixon last year. He had an unbelievable game. Now, he needed it. After last week, 2.7 a carry, I know that he had the touchdown, but the week prior to that, I think it was like 2.9 a carry against Cleveland. And he got the biggest workload of his career. He got 27 carries today. He got 5 targets. You're getting this man like that. That should show you about Jermaine Burton, too. Your running back had 32 touches today. When's the last time a Bengals back had 32 touches? You have to go back a while for that, I would imagine. Let me check out Joe Mixon's Football Reference. It's been a good. Haywood says T to the Giants for a 4th and Aziz. You know what I'd rather do? I would rather tag T again next year than trade him for a 4th. But Aziz, how long's on his deal? He's a linebacker. I don't know about a linebacker. Don't know about a linebacker. Stupid Eagles are loaded. Raiders, not so much. Yeah, but Max Crosby's there, and they got to do something about Max Crosby just killing quarterbacks after like late and after plays. I can't remember a time I've seen a guy called for offsides and roughing the passer. I saw that and I was like, 70 yards, maybe? What is that? But hell, push us across the field. I don't give a damn. Would have liked for him to stay in Cincinnati, though. But, I mean, listen, I know a lot of people are like, oh, they're going to trade Max Crosby. They are not going to trade Max Crosby unless they get a king's ransom for him. Because he is the guy that you keep. And they have him through 2026. No, you hope that somebody that you've picked up gets good by then. You don't trade a guy with 2.5 years left on his deal. No, not in his 20s, unless you get offered firsts for him. And I don't want the Bengals to give up a first. I would not be surprised if they were to tag T again, but is it worth that guaranteed money for 8 to 10 games, if that? So I see a lot of people in Cincinnati radio saying, well, maybe the Bengals can swoop in and get him for a discount. No, not the way the NFL works, not the way any sport works. The question is there any team desperate? Yes, there's always a team desperate enough to take a chance on a guy like T. Higgins, who is incredible. Always. Tanner Hudson sucks, but hey, he got some playing time. Eric All, unfortunately, out with an ACL tear. So the Bengals last year turned to the tight end game and did really well. They had Drew Sample and Tanner Hudson. That's what they were working with last year, right? This year, they add Mike Gesicki, who is more of a slot and works out of that. They drafted Eric All. And unfortunately, Tanner Hudson sort of lost his reps by fumbling. And Eric All sort of beat out Drew Sample for his reps. Then Mike Gesicki ended up having to fill in for T. Higgins an awful lot and Jermaine Burton for their wide receiver reps. So now I wonder if Tanner McLachlan, who has been inactive every game this year, might get elevated. Might. Or if they'll just go with the tight ends they have now, since they felt pretty comfortable throwing to Tanner Hudson and Drew Sample today, who gave me no reason to believe they couldn't, right? Fella I haven't mentioned at all today. How about this? Game so good, I barely mentioned Joe Burrow, who had 5 touchdowns. He had 1 interception. It was a rough one, but got sacked 1 time. Boy, is that nice. Sacked 1 time, and there was no Orlando Brown Jr. Well, that's pretty nice, right? Max Crosby didn't get a single sack. Though the sack that they had, I think, was a combined sack as well. It was one of those like pocket collapses types of sacks. So now we have we say the thing here. In 2021, the Bengals were 5-4. In 2022, the Bengals were 5-4. 2023, the Bengals were 5-4, and now they're 4-5. They're probably about to be 4-6, though. Joe Burrow's record, as Joe Goodberry posted, from November through the rest of the regular season is 16-7. So let's take a look at this schedule, damn it. Bengals schedule. Okay, let's talk about it. They got 4 wins right now. I think they can beat the Chargers. That's going to be a tough game. I think they can beat the Steelers. That's going to be a tough game. They should absolutely beat the Cowboys. They should absolutely beat the Titans. They should absolutely beat the Browns. And they should beat the Broncos. The Bengals, floor still, should be 8 wins. The Steelers' offense sucks. Which sucks more? The Bengals' defense or the Steelers' offense? Because the Cincinnati Bengals are looking at literally every game being pretty winnable throughout the end of the year after the Ravens game. I don't think they're winning that one. I guess we'll see. I guess we will see. Joe Burrow, again, let's check out whatever his stat line was. 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. I think he was like 27-39 or something like that. Very good. Very good. He's willing this team into playoff contention. I don't think the Bengals are going to make a deep run this year. I'm not expecting that. But listen, if Joe Burrow can get this team to the playoffs, to me, MVP run is okay. I fully believe that Lamar Jackson is MVP quality. I don't want to take anything away from him there. I think he's incredible. But you also have Derrick Henry playing the way that he's playing. I think that is very important. Jared Goff is got to be up there as well. Man. Miss Kayfabe says we have a QB now. Yeah. You got Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. We'll see. We'll see. How's Russell Wilson doing? Let me just check it out. Let me see what his numbers are like. Is this their bye week? I didn't notice them playing. Let's see. Okay. 3 touchdowns, no picks, 63% completion percentage. That's promising. I mean, I said this at the beginning of the year. I thought that Russell Wilson was written off far too early because last year, last year, 26 touchdowns, 8 picks. Like I saw that and I was like, man, why? If you're the Broncos, why don't you have him like help out Bo Nix a little bit? You're already paying him. Niners and Steelers were on the bye. Okay. All right. Well, the next 2 games are going to determine if I go to that December 1st Bengals Steelers game. I've been very lucky. The weather's been incredible for Bengals games so far. But the Bengals don't play at home for a month. They've got the Ravens this Thursday. The next weekend, they have the Chargers. Then it's the bye week. And then they come back on December 1st. And weather's starting to get rough. Go figure. Guys, I want to thank you all so much for joining me. It means an awful lot. I am exhausted. I feel every bit of it being like almost 1 a.m. with the time change and all that. But, man, I know I don't do big YouTube numbers or anything, but over 2,000 of you have tuned in and watched this. And this is just for a guy who likes to chat a little stuff about the Cincinnati Bengals and football. Until next time, my friends, we're out.